All right, everybody. Today, we are focusing on photorealism, professional use cases, specifically like, architecture, interior design, things like that. So we're going deep on this. We're asking the question, how would we do this if we were a professional deploying these tools into an architecture firm? What would we do? How would we go about making the best quality outputs? We've partnered with a professional LoRa trainer. The reason that we're highlighting them is primarily because we think that it showcases what's possible when you really invest the time in training a LoRa as a tool. And we're going to go through how those influence the generation process, how they impact the quality and the aesthetic of the generations that you're producing. And we'll be kind of going through just some of the applied use cases for interior design specifically. So we're going to take, we'll take an empty canvas here, and we're just going to get started by comparing the results of a generation with and without this Flux, just to kind of get an idea of like, what are we talking about when we're talking about aesthetic changes and impacts on quality. So I'll turn off the LoRa real quick. Yes, and thank you. Somebody asked if I had remembered to start recording. I did start recording, so we're good. We're going to type our prompt. Were you going to use Flux for this? There's a comparable LoRa for XL as well, but really, kind of showcasing where the tip of the spear is on professional quality and kind of what you can do. We're going to focus on Flux today. It'll be a little bit of a slower generation as a result because SDXL is really zippy, but we're gonna get basically every ounce of quality that we can get from what's available today. So we'll do, a sun-drenched living room. And remember, with Flux, you got to be a little bit more narrative and use proper English in describing it. So we're doing a sun-drenched living room. There are beautiful curtains. I feel like I'm writing poetry here. There are beautiful curtains. The wind is blowing. And we see a mid-century modern aesthetic. The image is interior design photography and is of the utmost highest quality. Okay. We always have to do that when we do a really good prompt like that. Oh, we got to give a little bit of love. All right, so I'm going to turn off random. We're going to do a fixed seed so that we can compare this 1-to-1, and we're going to go for it. We're going to invoke. So we're invoking one, and then we'll invoke the other with the Flux LoRa on top of that, and then we'll see what we get. Somebody asked, somebody commented, they said these flowery prompts are really difficult. It is very different. Some people have cited that they get prompts from, LLMs. I think you certainly can do that. I would propose that part of it should be coming from you, because I think there's an element here of the human touch that can really inject content that would not come from an LLM. Okay, so we're looking at the befores and afters here with and without this LoRa, and kind of comparing the results on these two. This day, hope that's what we're doing. Okay, seed is there. We're seeing the results of the seed kind of carry through the generation process. We like what we're seeing here. The colors are cool. So without the LoRa and with the LoRa. Without the LoRa, let's look at this. We see this kind of chair over here. It's not like this room is bad, but it definitely feels a little bit more like plasticky and not as like rich. When we switch over to this LoRa, this thing turns into a much like more inviting chair. So this is very cool. We like this. Let's look at some other aesthetics that have come in here. The couch is definitely like, it's more of like you got this couch at a garage sale type couch in the base Flux LoRa, or the base Flux model. It's, the aesthetic is largely the same in this image. It's driven by the seed, but it's these details that really pop out in this LoRa that like make it feel all the more inviting and all the more kind of like what you would expect from interior design. The lamp becomes kind of a little bit enlarged and it's a little bit more interesting. I mean, you can just kind of see the colors a little bit richer on the LoRa as well. So it's kind of shoved it all in a more photographic and kind of higher quality result. Somebody said it looks like Flux does generate good photography just by default. I think that, yeah, that's for sure. That's one of the benefits of Flux, is it's particularly good at this type of qualitative output. And I actually think if we had a longer prompt, it would even do better, right? The more text you inject into these, the better it does. So, I think there's certainly something to be said there. Let's just, for the sake of it, let's say expand on this description with flowery and descriptive language. And I'm just going to put this into the old Chat GPT, and we're going to see what we get. We got a prompt output already. We'll read this out loud so that everyone can feel the prompt and we can all savor it and we can roll it around in our mouth. A gentle cascade of sunlight streams through the wide gleaming windows of this exquisitely arranged living room, illuminating every thoughtfully curated detail and wrapping the space in a golden warmth. That's all I'm going to read because I don't know that I can get through the rest of it without chuckling. This is a very long prompt. We're going to see how the length of the prompt impacts this Flux output. So we'll do this same comparison, same seed before and after. We'll do 2 more generations. Somebody asked a couple questions here. Can we do a session on how to create those insanely detailed images where the architectural lines are extremely detailed and straight? Sure. Yeah, we could do that at some point in the future. I imagine they're using some sort of control net, so it's mostly just more control net techniques, but certainly good there. The professional LoRa doesn't seem very different from the ones made by the community. I think they the way that I would describe this is the types of content that you find the community training on typically differ from that which a professional might need. Well, I'll just put it that way. So there isn't really as much of a library of professional content. The reason I call this out, and I think that this session is most importantly focused on, is just whatever you want to be generating, training a LoRa is going to be important in that process. It's going to be something that you should be thinking about because it will pull it more towards that output that you're going for. So before and after here, I would say that, like, again, it's largely compositionally the same. The composition's driven by the seed and the prompt. What we're seeing is the qualitative detail here. It's just kind of like adding, it's adding that kind of like polish or finishing touch that would make the difference between like a before and after image of like a photo before it's retouched, right? Like, it's doing some recoloring. It's making some of the furniture a little bit more like, I mean, it's like the difference between, again, going to like a normal furniture store and going to something that's a little bit more like they're going to charge you probably a couple of $1,000s more. And part of this, again, is because this is intended to be an interior design LoRa. So it's trying to push it more towards that luxury aesthetic. And I feel like it ultimately does. It feels like everything's just a little bit more polished and a little bit tighter. I don't know. I mean, I might be biased in that regard because I buy a lot of like West Elm mid-century modern stuff. But there's yeah, somebody said Ashley's Warehouse versus West Elm. I feel like that's exactly right. Somebody else out there appreciates furniture. Um, this is this is interesting. So somebody said, can you show the difference between re-invoking with this seed at 16.9 versus expanding the current one-to-one image to 16.9? Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to call out there is um, expanding this image at 16.9 is going to have a very significant structural difference. And the reason why is the seed, when you change aspect ratios, when you go down to 16.9, it's effectively a completely different seed. I mean, like it's going to be wildly different. One thing I want to call out, because I think it's an important thing, is this is before we extended the prompt, and this is after we extended the prompt, right? So from a qualitative perspective, the thing that I'm going to call out is like, there's a couple plants in this scene, in the before, which was a very simple prompt, and the scene, these leaves look a little bit less real, even in the LoRA version. It's, I would say, even worse in the pre-LoRA version. And this plant over here looks okay. It's like lit by the sun. I like the at the bottom got that little kind of like, palm base to it. When we go to this like longer prompt, it feels like this has more depth to it. It feels like this is like a more real scene. And I think that that's a pattern that I've noticed is just like the longer the prompt, the more you're going to get out of Flux, right? Flux is just going to give you more the longer it is. Um, I think we're at an interesting point where we've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum. We've seen a model that really likes tag-based beat poetry, and we're looking at a model now that likes these really long prompts. I think my hope for the future is that we find a model that is able to be more creative with a shorter prompt and more specific with a longer prompt, but ultimately maintains the quality on those dimensions. So those are like things that I think are interesting to think about. Somebody asked the question: is there a plan to introduce a magic prompt in Invoke that'll help people generate a better prompt? I will say yes and no. What magic prompts do on these like consumer-based applications that are out there is they behind the scenes do magic to your prompt, but they don't show you what they did. And ultimately, because Invoke is for professionals and our goal is really to make this like a transparent process, um, I think it's important that people see the prompt. And so magic prompts in our world will look something more like, give me a description of this image so I can use that prompt in my prompt box, or expand and write more of this prompt so that I can use it. But it's not going to be like behind the scenes magic. It's going to be something that you use as a tool to extend your prompts. So those are both like dimensions that we are thinking about. There's definitely some like, and I don't want to get like down a rabbit hole or tangent here, but behind the scenes, those magic prompts, one of the reasons they don't expose that is because they're probably adding like artist names and stuff like that to the prompt. And that's not something that we want to have happen. So that's another thing that we would be like training against or pulling out of any type of description or captioning or prompt extension tool. And that just takes a little bit more effort because there haven't really been a lot of models that have come out that are taking great care not to have that happen. So I think that maybe like what we do now is we start playing with one of these images and seeing how we might edit this with Flux, since we're starting to get into some interesting territories. So I'm going to accept this one, and I am going to maybe inpaint. We'll go to our layers here. We'll inpaint the floor. And a little bit of this floor over here, and maybe some of this underneath the couch. We'll just get all of this. Now, the denoising strength with Flux works a little bit differently than some of the older generation models. I think that there's a benefit to how Flux works, but it also, some of the techniques that we've been showing in previous versions, they operate similarly, but they have a different kind of character and feel to them. So I'm going to try to get this to regenerate the scene. I'm not using a control layer at all, which is one of the benefits of Flux. It does really well at just kind of cohering everything together. Not going to use a control layer. I probably am going to go ahead and cut some of this down, just because I don't know what else is in there and I want to read it all before I change the prompt. And I'm going to say concrete floors, and I am also going to add regional guidance here. I'm hesitating to do this because I'm not using our hosted product right now. I'm running locally, so who knows? This could go sideways. Concrete floors. We'll do concrete floors here. Yeah, someone said GPU abuse. Ain't that the truth? We'll take some of this out. And I think we'll go ahead and give this our best shot to see if we can reimagine this room with concrete floors. It's doing okay. We survived. We're keeping it on the rails here. It started out with gray. I think I'm seeing some gray over here on the side. It may just have this kind of golden color to it, which is probably right. That's probably what you'd want. But I think we've gotten rid of that wooden floor. So we are getting a little bit of what we asked for. I think shiny concrete. That's what somebody said. Someone said marble floor, wooden. Yeah, I say parquet floor. Is that how I pronounce that? I'm not cultured. You're going to need to help me. Kind of like a very flat, shiny parquet. Okay. Thank you for those of you who are cultured. Cement floor. Let's try just one thing I forgot to do, and what you always want to do. This is the same seed. So let's try it with a different seed, because I'm just curious if that kind of messed it up. One thing you'll notice is that I used the same seed, and with Flux, I didn't get this kind of garbled or garbled output where it did kind of weird stuff. It kind of just didn't look as good. I'm thinking if I do a random seed, I'm actually going to get a little bit more out of it. I haven't changed anything else yet. We'll see. Somebody asked for dirt floors to go way out of what might be contextually relevant to this, which would be at odds with the aesthetic. I think that's an interesting thing to try. Yeah, this is concrete. It's concrete. That makes sense. Okay, so random seed makes it good if you're doing Inpainting. Let's just always remember to do that. Somebody said couch needs a panda, clearly. Okay, we'll do a couch with a panda after we do the dirt floors. We'll see natural, earthy dirt floors. Yeah, okay. Let's do natural, earthy dirt floors. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay, I've got questions coming in, as well as just a bunch of suggestions for different floors. Somebody said if you added a bit of gray color, it would help. It could. Flux is a little bit of a different beast, but yes, it could. Someone said, I get slightly confused here. Is it required to combine both in-paint mask and regional guidance to achieve this result? Can you explain the relationship a bit? It is not required to get this result. It is more of if I didn't have regional guidance, it would largely be the same or roughly similar. I think we didn't get, I did concrete floors as the regional guidance. Okay, let's actually test this out. So regional guidance very clearly drove concrete floors in for us, and it kind of ignored my natural earthy dirt floors. But so we'll take this out. Let's get our concrete floors saved out just so we can have this as a comparison. New raster layer, and we'll delete, and then I'll move this out. this on. Take these two out. Actually, now I need to duplicate this to me. Duplicate. We'll take this out over here. Get the table line up there. All right. So let's do this generation with a fixed seed that's shuffled. So it's a different seed, but it's going to be fixed. We'll do this without regional guidance, and then we'll do it with regional guidance. I anticipate that it will largely be the same. Somebody called out that the rug did change. It did change. That's something that people are calling out that I did the regional prompting with concrete. Regional prompting, I find it's most useful when you need to disambiguate what you're talking about. So if I had 3 characters in a scene, one of them's supposed to have a blue jacket, then I want to use regional guidance to tell it that's the one with the blue jacket, right? I'm helping disambiguate. In this case, I don't think that it's particularly incredibly important, although I didn't get my natural earthy dirt floor, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll help this quite a bit. We'll see. So we'll duplicate this out. Duplicate, move another copy out. Another thing I could be doing is just merging visible and then copying that over, but you know, I love the long way. I've not done moved this enough. Go. Perfectly aligned. Okay, so this was concrete. This was natural earthy dirt floor without regional guidance. Now I'm going to turn regional guidance back on. I'm going to say natural earthy dirt floors. It is just possible that this is not going to give us dirt floors, right? Just because it's like wildly different than the aesthetic. There's not many like interior design companies that are looking for dirt floor images, but we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens. No. So the answer was regional prompting without in-paint mask does nothing. That's not quite accurate. The way I would say it is if you're generating a new image and you have regional guidance there, you are kind of harnessing the attention of the regional guidance. You're harnessing the prompt and you're kind of biasing it towards a specific area. And we'll do a text to image generation just for this as well, right? We'll see what we get. But I don't think we're getting a dirt floor here. I don't think that the dirt floor is really kind of vibing with this. Somebody asked, could you add dirt into the regional guidance layer and use that? I could if I were using SDXL. We have not yet implemented reference images on Flux. So this is kind of another advantage of the SDXL ecosystem right now, is it's just a little bit more mature, if you will allow me that. But yes, that would jam dirt. That would jam dirt in, because the IP adapter or the reference image, that really shoves the content into that area. So we're going to just take this out entirely and copy this. Oh man, that's not what I wanted either. All right. We're going to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get dirt, but what I did say I was going to do, it's this one, yeah, this one, and this one. There we go. Let's do turning off the in-paint mask, or I'll just clear it. Let's see what happens when we generate this from scratch with and without the regional guidance. So we'll do fixed seed with regional guidance. We're generating that. Yeah, people are now getting very, they want to go down a rabbit hole, very focused on the regional guidance prompt and how to get dirt floors. I don't think that dirt floors should be the focus of this session. I'm just going to say that. Glimmer's probably like sighing relief right now because I'm not focused on uh, dirt floors. But somebody said you can dig rabbit holes in dirt floors. You sure can. Um, so we've got regional guidance on right now, and we're going to generate with that. Still didn't get dirt floors. I don't think we're going to get dirt floors from this. I'm just like, I don't think it's like focusing that much on the prompt. But what we're going to see is what happens with the regional guidance, with and without the regional guidance. That's with the regional guidance. Let's turn off, use the same seed, and see what we get. Anticipate it will have a significant amount of similarity, but some slight differences. In this case, it may be very, very similar. Because again, this is not specifying anything specific. It's kind of like, where else would the floor be, right? And I think that's maybe a good piece to kind of think about when it comes to what regional guidance is doing. When an image is generating, and somebody mentioned this, I think it was maybe Keyturn. When we're generating this, there's this thing underneath the hood, which is like the attention of the AI model. It's like this basically kind of like where it thinks the words should go, like where it's seeing the words impacting the generation. And as it goes through on each step, it's kind of honing its understanding of where is the most likely area that this word and this token and this set of tokens should be applied. I think when you're generating something and you say floor, it is unlikely that the floor is on the ceiling, right? So the attention of the AI is already focused there, and that's why this regional prompting is kind of like, it's very similar. If we change this regional prompt to something else, let's do this just as an experiment. We always love to experiment live. Turn this on. So this was with and without the regional guidance. There's like some slight differences, but it's relatively similar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say southwestern knit rug, vibrant colors. Floor has a southwestern knit rug, vibrant colors. Now we're going to see what happens when we turn this on and it's something else other than what's in the prompt. Somebody said regional guidance and Inpainting might be a worthy video session because you're going to get asked this more often. That's probably fair. I think they both go hand in hand. Like, the regional guidance is useful for raw image generation, which is I want to guide the attention of the model during the generation process when I'm just generating it. And Inpainting can leverage that to also edit those pieces that you are specifically going after. So you might want the attention of the southwestern rug on the entire floor, but you might only be inpainting one part at a time. So the inpainting and regional guidance don't necessarily need to map one-to-one, but you are basically putting the regional guidance down to help hone where certain things are in the context of the like attention landscape of the AI. It's starting to get into some like esoteric technical stuff. So if that's not tracking for folks, we can do a deeper, like more, we'll say tutorial-esque process on this. But what I'll call out is when we use the regional guidance to say that the floor has a southwestern knit rug, vibrant colors, we can definitely see that it's changing the generation, right? It is moving things around. It's helping guide it. This wasn't in the original prompt, and so it really is injecting something new into that. We can see the overall composition is roughly similar. We have the same seed, but this prompt has changed some of the adjacent areas. I also like the window a little bit better. It's just like wide open, so that's nice. most of the color from this is coming in from this gentle cascade of sunlight streams through the windows. And that's kind of like the big driver of the overall scene. But we can see how regional guidance affects that. Now, let's say, for example, I want to inpaint this image and I have regional guidance off. Okay, regional guidance is what was jamming that southwestern rug in, and I've got regional guidance off. And I want to come in and I want to regionally edit this. I'm going to turn my seed on random, or at least shuffle it. We'll shuffle my seed. So I'll turn it off. We'll shuffle the seed. All right, I shuffled the seed. We turned it off. We're generating. And then I'll turn it back on and we'll generate again. And what we'll see is that keeping that regional guidance, although, you know, maybe to better illuminate what I'm trying to get at, what do I not like about this? Maybe I want to change this and only this. I want to keep everything else. I'm not changing the entire rug. I'm just changing this one piece. So no regional guidance. I have a fixed seed that I changed from our base generation, and I'm generating again. We're going to see what exactly changes when we do this. All right, now I'm seeing some other questions. Somebody said, wait, we're providing free QA for Invoke. We're all QAing all these models all the time. Nobody knows what's going on in AI. We're all figuring it out together. Somebody said, I think those southwestern rugs are woven. Okay, technicalities. So less is more in regional guidance. In SDXL, I've had trouble adding something via regional guidance that is not contained in the original positive prompt. Yes, you need to have it in the original prompt for SDXL. Flux is a little bit of a different beast. It uses a different text encoder. It's jamming more text content in, and regional guidance leverages a lot of that as well. So you can get away without having as much of this like one-to-one. The way that I have always told people SDXL works best is when the prompt is seen as kind of like the global, like all of the parts and pieces, and regional guidance is specifically filtering and guiding where certain elements of that are in it. You get a lot more of the kind of like, I can inject new content in when you're using IP adapters or in reference images. In this case, we're using regional guidance with Flux, and it is jamming a lot of that in even with text because it is using a larger text encoder. So that's kind of like an interesting one. All right, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to duplicate and pull this out. I've not been keeping good notes, so I've lost track of almost all of these things. I have no idea which ones are which anymore. I know which one we're working on right now, though. All right, so I'm going to turn this back on. And now we've got regional guidance. We can see where the regional guidance impacts the generation. It's not the whole part of this Inpainting. It's kind of bleeding over into it and kind of injecting some new content that way. And I anticipate that parts of this will be similar to what we generated before. The seed's the same, but I do anticipate there will be differences, and we'll see what those are momentarily. So we still got in the one without the regional guidance, it pulled a lot of context in from what was around it and still did fine. I anticipate it will be slightly better, but maybe not significantly better with the regional prompt. We'll see. We'll see. It's almost done. It's a little bit slower. It's Flux. So what did it change? What exactly did it change? Let's do the same thing here. Let's duplicate this and duplicate this. I'm actually going to duplicate that. Oh my Lord. All right, here we go. 1, 2. Let's go above. All right, so we compare these side by side. Honestly, they're the same picture. They're not the same picture, but they're like pretty close. I'm looking at the detail. The books changed a little bit, right? The book's on the table. This one's got a little bit of stuff in it. Some of the textures a little bit different on the carpet. So you can see this book's different. It influenced the generation, but it was only a tiny sliver. But you can see that it changes the dynamics of the image anytime you've got regional guidance in it. And so even if you're not working on an area where there is regional guidance, it'll have an influence. It'll obviously have more of an influence if you're overlapping the area that you're working on. But I might not want to edit all of the carpet. I might not want to edit all of the area where regional guidance is. Maybe I want to edit part. And that's kind of where you can have many different regional guidance layers. You can have an entire composition of regional prompts, and the Inpainting can go over any or all of those things at any given time. So you can edit and manipulate things in parts and pieces that way. Someone said, curious, if I want to paint a work of art with half in Van Gogh style and the other half in Monet style, should I use an Inpainting mask or regional guidance? Well, that's an entire studio session on its own. Glimmer, take that down as a note. I feel like that's like a good studio session, maybe for the coming weeks. Somebody said, seed did the most work in this generation. I agree. I think the seed is kind of what is driving the majority of this composition. And I think this goes back to last week's session, right? And I think we just posted this video. So people who weren't at last week's session and immediately consumed all of our YouTube content, as all of you should, because you've liked and subscribed, you will recall that we talked about the importance of seed when it comes to composition, because it's biasing the colors and the shapes and the structures of all of it. So that is definitely what's happening here. We got a question. In SDXL, I've isolated regions in a generated image via Inpainting and regional guidance at a high denoising strength. But the model tries to recreate the entire positive prompt within the masked area. Your thoughts? You're going to want to use either a lower denoising strength or use a control layer to keep everything outside of it coherent and kind of aligned with the underlying area. So if you've got a very high denoising strength with SDXL, it will try to create that image in the area as it makes sense to. And if you control it with a control layer and kind of like give it some structural stuff, it'll do a lot better. Somebody asked, speaking of seed, how do you know how to nudge the seed in the direction you want to go? That's not how it works. That's not how it works. We talked about this last week. The seed itself is just going to be random. Like, we can't predict what it's going to do. We can find a seed we like and then change the prompt so that it's like we know how that one seed works, and we're kind of like working from that same seed to do something else. But it's not like we're going to be controlling the seed in and of itself or the noise that it generates. What we talked about last week, though, is that you can bias the noise. You can say, where are the brights and where are the darks? I haven't actually tested this with Flux. Let us test it live. Let's figure out how this works live. So I'm going to create a new raster layer. And for the sake of having some different visuals, I'm going to throw this into our favorite hallucinator and say, create a prompt in this style, but in a completely different style. I'm saying this descriptive style, but in a completely different aesthetic. And it's coming back. It's transforming the aesthetic. It's shifting its approach. It's thinking about it. Using O1, obviously. Okay. The prompt it came back with. a sun scorched Adobe living space. So it's not sun drenched, it's sun scorched now, which is obviously the way that we would want to describe our living space. Maybe in 20 or 30 years, it's going to be sun scorched rather than sun drenched. That's a warming thought. We'll go ahead and we'll generate this. Yes, somebody said 20 to 30 years. Okay, we're gonna generate something new here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a raster layer. I'm gonna do some whites, maybe some lighter. And then just for the sake, making sure that I'm like clipping strokes to bounding box, I am. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do lighter, and then we'll do some darker grays on the right. And we'll do something in the middle in between. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say like left to right gradient of sorts. We've got lighter on the left, darker on the right. So we're going to say we're going to generate this. First, though, we generate with this seed, our sun-scorched Adobe living space. Still think that's so funny. Oh, AI, you never stop making me laugh. You never stop making me laugh. It does look hot in that room. That looks very hot. It's a kind of a attractive place maybe in the winter months. But kind of not what I'm looking for as a future living abode. Somebody said those Southwestern rugs get you that look. I don't think we have any Southwestern rugs in here anymore. I took that regional prompt out for what it's worth. But we can see that there's it's sun scorched. The dirt floor finally came through, even though I don't know if the dirt floor, oh, the earthy dirt floor is right there in the middle. I love this. The natural earthy dirt floors breathe authenticity into the scene. Mwah, so good. Okay, so we're looking at this sun-scorched Adobe living space. We can see that the light is coming from the back. It's coming into, sorry, I'm like getting a fit. I'm getting in a state here. So hilarious. The light's coming from the back into the room. We're going to go ahead and accept this, and we are going to move and compare this over here. Oh man, this never gets old. It's so fun. All right, we're going to do high denoising strength 0.9, and we're going to see what we get. It might not be enough. We might need to go a little bit higher because I don't, yeah, the color is kind of like getting stuck in there. And this is something I'll call out with Flux. Flux really wants to stick to that original image. You have to like really push it out of it. So we're going to go to the peaks here. We're going to go to the 0.98. Or all the way up. I don't have Inpaint mask. But just in case, I'll get rid of it. Maybe I do. I don't think I do, but we're going to get rid of it. And we're going to see what we get. The other thing is, I wonder if I've got this like actually fully filled. It's another thing. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go over it with another round of color. So I might have missed a pixel or something somewhere, and it's doing outpainting instead. So we'll just get that, and we'll make sure that we got this. We'll play around with a couple of denoising strings too. But we can see that when we're using that raster layer to bias the noise, bias the seed towards the gradient that we're looking for, we're actually changing the composition, right? We're pulling the light source to the left. You know, we're kind of guiding that. And there's some interesting techniques. You know, you can almost imagine kind of like a light source creator, right? Which is just a gradient on a point, and you kind of change where the light source is. There's been a lot of experimentation with other tools that do that. And effectively, it's kind of like wrapping how you interface with it. It's doing the lighting for you, or it's doing this technique under the hood. There's a lot of websites out there on the internet that are taking these tiny little techniques and like building a business off of it. It's just a little tiny technique for using it. But you can see that it significantly impacts the lighting and the the composition of this. This is actually like a little bit more of a, it's an attractive spot. It looks a little bit less sun scorched, and it looks like it's escaping the sun scorched outdoors, because this area is like kind of like a retreat almost. Looks cool. Somebody said Switchlight is a great app for completing changing lighting in a scene based upon a reference image. Used it at Meta a ton. I don't think I've seen that tool, so that's cool. I'm sure that it's all doable with workflows. It's just a function of how much work you want to put into creating your own workflow. But we can see that that's how we get control over the noise, and ultimately like can guide the composition a little bit here. So let's say that we are not starting from an existing or from a generated image. We want to kind of like edit an existing one. I'll save this out as its own thing, and then we'll clear the layers. What a journey we've gone through. Every time we always see some cool stuff, don't we? But look at the quality of this image. This is pretty sweet. Can't argue with the results. Let's pull this out as a raster layer. We've got this kind of like living room. And let's do something. Let's bring this in as a global reference image. So I'm bringing this in as global reference. This is the XLabs IP adapter V2. So the Flux tools stuff is still on the horizon, but V2 is pretty good for now. We're going to do some inpainting, and I'm going to maybe inpaint this area here. I'm going to bring the weight down here, and I'm just going to use a mid-century modern living room as the prompt. Probably could bear being expanded for Flux, but we're going to do that anyways. We'll do interior design, photography, and we'll do it in the way that it likes. This image is high quality, best in the world, professional interior design photography. Do I think that any of those words matter? Probably not. But we'll give it a shot anyways. I have my denoising strength pretty high here. It might be too much. We'll bring that down to 0.9. It might be okay though. I just think it's going to change it quite a bit because it's Flux. And it did, but it's still coherent. And I think this is something that you'll notice with SDXL is if you go too high on the denoising strength, you can get an entirely different image that doesn't cohere at all. Flux has this interesting trait where it kind of like, as it's going through the process, is doing a lot better of a job at like connecting these two. So it's kind of created the living room, and as it's going through, it's like creating a different living room, and then it's like, wait a minute, we got to fix this. We got to bring these two together. And it did that really well. When I brought the denoising strength down, the overall composition maps a little bit more to our original than this new one. But, you know, I think those are our things that we'll take a peek at here momentarily. Somebody asked, is Flux Canny, Flux Fill, and Flux Redux supported in Invoke? Soon TM. Soon TM. Those are being looked at. So this is what we got when the strength was really high. It kind of created this like little nook over here, which is maybe interesting. I don't know that I wouldn't do it like that. But it did change the furniture. It's very mid-century modern. It kind of brought that aesthetic in. If we compare the original to this, you know, we can see some interesting stuff there. It's different, right? Because it was a very high denoising strength, and it basically took out the entire floor and created something that it kind of hallucinated in. The overall composition and structure is a little bit more aligned with the original when the strength is lower, but we still got some bigger shifts. I don't know what these are. I don't know if they exist. I don't know if you can buy them. But they do look interesting. I don't know that you call this like mid-century modern, but they're modern, maybe postmodern, mid-century postmodern, post mid-century modern, some combination of postmodern and mid-century. Um, so you get the idea. If we take this out completely, so we'll take out the global reference image. I don't know that it's going to have a very bad effect on this. Oh, this is what we did without. I said this was without the reference image. No. We got to do it. We do a completely different one. Did I do that without? Maybe I did that without one. Okay. So we'll do this without, but at a high denoising strength. Maybe that's kind of what I did. I think maybe I had poked those two together. No, I did those both with. Maybe there's something at the caching on this IP adapter. We'll try tweaking do this at 0.97 and see what we get. Oh, that's on though. We're going to turn this off. You notice it was like generating the image very quickly. That means it's a cached generation. It means we're not going to regenerate if you've already generated with those exact settings. I'm skeptical I actually generated with those exact settings on that specifically. So somebody's asking whose trademark is soon TM. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's Valve, but I don't know that. I think they might be the earliest users of Soon, or the community around Valve is the earliest users of Soon. And some folks in the chat are responding accordingly. So this is without the IP adapter. I think we actually get a better image. So I'll just save this out as a raster layer. I think we get a better image with the IP adapter, personally. Duplicate this out, that under, pull that down. Really should just merge those. It's the technique. That's what I should be doing. We'll merge this here. We're going to merge it down. God, I'm so smart. I'm just forgetting about all these features we've added, like merging and stuff like that. Just merge them, you dude. All right. So we're going to turn this on and go back up to 0.98 and just compare that one that we had. Okay, now it's generating. There we go. Somebody said, I always thought Soon was Blizzard. Maybe, I don't know. I think Valve beat them, but it's possible. Somebody says, sometimes while inpainting with regional guidance, I get misaligned elements, a body part or furniture edge that doesn't line up, or unwanted hard edges from the bounding box, even when I make sure to mask within the bounding box lines. Let's get misaligned elements or unwanted hard edges from the bounding box. Okay. I see what's being asked here. If you're editing an image, you're going into a smaller region. What we're doing on the Inpainting mask is there is blur being applied, and that blur can be edited in the compositing section. That blur is basically making the edges of your Inpainting mask seamless. Now, you can control that. So you can like draw further away from the edge. You can also control it by changing the edge size smaller. As a feature request, someone might ask, could you automatically do that for me if it's near a bounding box edge? Which maybe we could do as a setting, but I'll let you all discuss and debate in the chat live. So many things people are. Okay, I'm kind of, somebody posted a link to Wayfair, which I have a feeling is like the some of these furniture pieces that I called out. Will Invoke have a way to save a session as a project so everything is saved? So if you want to work on it at a later time, it can all be brought back. We have discussed it. It is on our long-term roadmap. I cannot comment when it's going to happen because things keep coming up in AI, the AI world. There's like so much going on that we're trying to build at the same time. So it's a priorities thing, but it is something that we will do. We've talked about the basically saving all of the content into the project so that if you've got a bunch of layers, if you've got settings, if you've got a prompt history in a session, being able to pull all of that in, that is gonna be it's coming. It's gonna be an eventuality. It will take a little bit of time to build that, but we've got a lot of stuff coming. For those of you who have not taken a look at the releases channel, you can see that we've been investing a lot in our open source community as well. The features that we are releasing, some of the ones that are coming up, we are doing for you all. We're doing for the open source folks that watch this. We've got plenty of hosted folks that are happy as can be on our hosted product. We also invest in our open source community to make you all happy. We're doing both an easier launcher and installer, and we're also doing lower VRAM so that you can, even if you're on a potato computer, if you got a Game Boy Advance you want to hook up and you want to plug it in, generate some pictures, low VRAM will help you. It actually won't run on a Game Boy Advance, but you get the idea. Somebody asked about prompt history. Somebody said, we love you for open source. I know y'all do. Do us a favor and go spread that love. As it is now, if you save an image out of the canvas, you can recall the layers as long as you've not deleted intermediates since they were made. Yes, currently, if you save a canvas, we save all of the canvas stuff in that file with that image so that you can recall that back. If you're local, if you're running this on open source and you clear out your intermediates, you clear out all like the stuff in the back, that'll actually delete all that history as well. You don't want to do that if you want to keep your history. Our hosted users, we do all that for you. You never have to worry about that. So we're keeping all of that saved, and it's just ballooning. I think we're running towards the end of time. I think you'll get the idea here, which is primarily a few things that we've touched today. Flux is different than SDXL. It does photorealism really well. That photorealism can be augmented into like the perfect kind of like tuning with LoRAs that are trained on a task. In this case, when we train it on interior design, it really gets a lot better at the details of high quality interior design. Some people might be looking at this and saying, oh, it's the same picture. These are living rooms. But you look at like the aesthetic, the details, the furniture that's selected, those things really matter when you're building like professional visualizations. And so when you think about how this applies to your work, you may not be an architect, you may not be an interior designer. The real lesson here is training a LoRA to do the task you want it to do is going to give you better results almost always. It will help you tune the results to your process and your way of doing things. You might hear that I'm a little bit, my voice is giving out a little bit. I just did a talk at the AI Summit in New York yesterday. And the topic that I talked about more than anything else was the importance of training, the importance of fine tuning, and the importance of being able to own your model. As we go into the next couple of years, fine tuning is going to become more and more of a thing. More and more websites are starting to allow you to train, but you need to make sure that you can actually download that file, download that asset, and run it somewhere other than the place that you trained it. Because if you can't do that, they're probably training on a model that you wouldn't be able to, even if they gave you the LoRa, you wouldn't be able to use it anywhere else because it's kind of compatible with whatever base model they have. And B, it probably means they're planning on trying to lock you into the ecosystem and not really give you flexibility in any case. You want to be able to own your creative power. It's my go-to saying. Someone said, is training a LoRa video on YouTube the same as your pro version? I don't know what that means. I don't know what training a video on YouTube means, or training a LoRa video. But there's training. There's a lot of places you can do training. Invoke has training online. We have open source scripts. You can train in a lot of places. figure out how to train, learn what you need to do to train a model, and it will help you get better results in what you're doing. We'll go ahead and close out for today because I'm like getting over on time. But as always, I appreciate you all. Thanks for sticking around on another Friday, watching some generations go by. And I had a lot of fun, especially where we got the sun scorched Adobe. So we'll see you all next time. Bye.